Okay, guys, let's start the show. Welcome to URBONUS podcast with my partners in crime, Augustas Šuliauskas and Rytis Vyšniauskas. Rytis, we are so happy to have you here because we heard that it was tough thing just to come out of the bed from what happened yesterday, right?
I wish Gerard Piqué never stepped on that pitch yesterday. Would have been much better. I'm extremely angry and frustrated. Why are you looking at me like that?
I know. I tried to follow up with something. Then I thought about Barcelona basketball club. If in the long term it will have any impact that football club sucks for recent years.
Yeah.
I stopped following football for many years ago, but I mean, it might have impact. Your frustration right now in like 2 or 3 years might have some impact for the basketball club because they're big spenders.
Like you mean to tell me a few bad performances by Piqué means less quality in the point guard section for Barcelona in the EuroLeague?
Exactly, and some Saras crazy signings and decisions. Sertac Shanli type of signings, more Rocco by this type of players in the team.
You know, usually I don't like playing the blame game, like blaming one particular person. But in this case, I have a huge agenda against former Shakira's husband.
Maybe there's a reason why.
Well, if you watch the highlights, you will see.
Okay. Yeah. Welcome to our bonus podcast. This is a special edition, by the way, special Q&A edition. And there's a big announcement we have to make. Thank you all for all the questions. In a short time, we received a lot of interesting questions. It was a hell of a journey. We'll answer all these questions, but we have to announce that this is the last episode of our bonus podcast because we just cannot take it anymore. This bullying of Rytis' haircut. Panathinaikos fans are attacking us with Augustas for the statements we made about Radonjic and Panathinaikos. Olympiacos fans were also mad because you said that they didn't do enough to win the title. Let's say they didn't do enough in summer to make them closer to the title. So we just cannot.
So I somehow managed to trigger all of our Greek community watchers.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's
cool.
I mean, you can support Olympiacos or Panathinaikos, and you will be hated by other group. But now all of us are attacking us, so we just cannot. I'm just messing with you guys. We are not going anywhere. You'll have to suffer our podcasts in the future as well. But there's an really important announcement. We're launching our new BasketNews Plus platform. It's kind of a new membership community in Europe. This is the community where you will be able to get some extra content. And it also starts from our podcasts. Just to make it clear, we are not going anywhere. We will have this weekly podcast, usually on Mondays or Tuesdays. But this Q&A session will be part of this BN Plus content. Every 2 weeks, probably, we'll make these Q&A sessions to answer your questions. But only the members of this BN Plus platform will be able to send us these questions, and only them will be able to get all the answers we will record on these pods. But this is only one of the many other features we'll offer. You'll get weekly analytical breakdowns by Augustas. He will expand about it later. There will be weekly betting opinions and options from Rytis. Weekly opinion articles. But what I like the most about this platform is that, 1 year ago when we launched BasketNews.com project, our main goal was to bring European basketball community together, which was really hard to do because, there's Spanish basketball community, Greeks, Serbians, they have their own platforms, but we were missing some big team which could combine all these different countries and cultures and basketball fans together. So I think we did a nice job, but this is our next step because we will create this more closed basketball community, which means that, for example, you will be able to join if you're gonna subscribe us, if you're gonna subscribe one of the 3 subscriptions we will offer on BasketNews.com plus, you will be able to join our closed Facebook group, and there you'll kind of be directly contacting us. You will be able to give us feedback, tips, opinions. Also, we will share our weekly plans. We will share behind the scenes stuff. We will have some events with prizes, for example, only for our members. And, looking long term, maybe we'll have this opportunity during the Final Four to go somewhere together, to spend some nice time and just talk about basketball. And we have this, let's say, this kind of thing in Lithuania, BasketNews.lt. They have almost 4,000 BN plus members. And for example, this summer we had this event where we invited all the BN plus members to one place to spend 2 days actually with a lot of basketball activities, non-basketball activities, just to talk, just to have some drinks, to share opinions. And there were like more than 100 people over there, although the weather was not the best for that kind of event. Anyway, it's a huge pleasure to be in such a nice community, the biggest community in Lithuania. So our hope is to make something like this European, worldwide, let's say, in Europe. So yeah, I think this is it. This is what Jonas asked me to.
A great
introduce. I hope
for
so.
this platform.
Yeah. So you guys gonna do some also. Oh, yeah. One more thing to add. All the news feed you're getting right now, the breakdowns of Augusta's podcasts, as I mentioned, some opinion articles, you'll continue getting them for free. But let's say this BN Plus platform is something like a extra, like bonus, like overtime, more coverage, more in-depth analysis, and being closer to our team. And for example, this Facebook group, if you want to watch some game, if you need some links, some streams, you can just ask these questions in this Facebook group. You can ask some other questions and just stay in touch with us directly. Ritis usually is pretty active in these groups, so I think it might be a very nice thing for you to join, and you will find more information on basketnews.com/plus. So yeah, can you guys introduce from your standpoint what you're gonna do particularly?
From my part, it's just gonna be, if these videos are coming out twice a month and they're more focused, let's say, on NBA Europeans, NBA stuff, or promising rookies. These articles that are going to be in the BN Plus platform are going to be more focused about EuroLeague. And let's say the first one that probably should be out today is about Partizan Alba game. I know we talked a lot about it here, but in that article I went more into detail about that game, more looking about it from the Partizan side. And it's not only a text, it's going to be some videos, let's say some text, then a video example of it, then a little bit more text on another topic from that game, another video, like a video example of it. So just there will be one article per week in the BN Plus platform from me.
Nice. And Ritis will have some betting
stuff. I wasn't really sure if I should do it, but I eventually agreed upon it to do some weekly EuroLeague betting tips. Honestly, I don't want anyone to blindly bet their money on what I'm saying. Maybe just some of my insights will be helpful, and I'm always for smart betting, like never go over the limits, never bet too much money that you cannot afford. But sometimes it makes EuroLeague more fun when you have something to cheer for. So yeah, I will have my weekly betting tips. Usually it will be like 5 games that I will cover, and I will try to find some over-under handicap or any other stuff. Sometimes player over-under. We'll see how it goes. So actually, we recorded the first episode already, and I think it was pretty good. We'll see what happens, and hopefully I'll manage to hit something. Like if I go down, maybe we all go down. Yeah. Because that's how it goes with betting.
So Ritis is like Gerard Piqué for us. could be. You know,
I'm
not saying
that.
I don't want to end up like this. I would prefer to be more like Erling Haaland of our table, but we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, your you know, insights could be also used for like fantasy EuroLeague or stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. Not necessarily like betting, because obviously a lot of people are against betting. Some people are too much into betting, but basically these are just tips, and whatever you decide to do with them, or maybe you disagree with some of the stuff, you will always be able to comment and let me know.
Yeah, so there are gonna be 3 different BN Plus subscription levels. Just join BN Plus community, and your subscription will support our creative and basketball level loving editorial team and bring their ideas to life. Okay, so let's start our Q&A session.
Let's go.
A lot of questions. We won't be able to respond to all of them, but we picked some of the most, let's say, intriguing and exciting ones. We actually skipped some questions about Lithuanian League or Greek League, for example, because it's already very, let's say, small community, small circle of basketball fans who are trying to follow European basketball. And if we will start focusing on LKL, especially knowing Rita's opinion about LKL level, I mean, it's going to be tough. So we will try to check more global things, and what can be more global than this Dubai thing? And we had a lot of questions about Dubai. So let's start with August Khan. What do you think about the purported offer by Emirates Airlines to sponsor the EuroLeague for $60 million per year? This sounds like what is needed right now, but could also give too much leverage to the sponsor apart from hosting finals and sending their own team. If at some point they get bored and pull out, no one could make a similar offer, and the league would be already used to that kind of money and maybe struggle to get on its feet. Then there's Umut Yazlar asking what do you think about the offer from Emirates for name sponsorship, as basketball culture is the foundation of the organization, with an infant and artificial association damage the league. And then there's Borja Gabancho questioning what do you think about send the Final Four to Arabia as being reported those days. What's your first impression about this potential cooperation with Dubai and new, very interesting unknown market?
The 60 million euros drastically changed the EuroLeague financial situation. What is the deal right now, Donatas? Maybe you
That's the
know
thing.
better.
Because this information was reported by a very respected Greek journalist of Gazeta, Adonis Kalkavouras. But I tried to do my research, and of course, maybe my sources weren't informed enough, or maybe they didn't have this very, 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 very inside information. But at least when EuroLeague shareholders, when all the EuroLeague teams were visiting Dubai, just in the beginning of this week, there were no particular numbers. There was nothing like, oh, so we give you $60 million and now we want wildcard for our team, Final Four for 3 years in a row, and Turkish Emirates EuroLeague name as the sponsors. So it was only, let's say, presentation of Dubai as a market and some potential possibilities for the EuroLeague looking forward, and what Dubai team could bring, what kind of arena they have, what kind of facilities they have, and maybe it was even more focused on hosting the Final Fours. And it was just a presentation, just a shareholders meeting to see each other, to check Dubai. There was a dinner, and nothing, no decisions were made. No strategy was made, and EuroLeague, the new administration, they're just gonna wait for the final proposal, and probably they're gonna exchange some ideas what one side and what other side wants. So it's,
I mean,
something that this 60 million number was exaggerated.
Okay. To be honest, I'm all okay with the name change.
What's the difference between Turkish Airlines and Emirates, for example?
I don't see really a difference in here. And if the money drastically changes the EuroLeague financial situation, I'm okay with a team from Dubai coming in, because probably they would have some a lot of money to make a good team and to be competitive. The biggest problem I see is with the Final Fours, because I believe the fans are already being robbed with the Final Four format. not having the semifinals and final series, we're kind of robbing a little bit fans from this experience of seeing your team winning the title or losing in the last game. I don't think quarterfinals are enough. So, and already in the Final Four in Europe, we already see a lot of empty spaces if it's not Greek, Turkey, or Serbian team playing in there. So a Final Four in Dubai, I'm not seeing European fans coming to experience that in real life. So I wouldn't be so sure about this part that organization of the Final Four every year in Dubai would make a lot of sense.
That's how sports is nowadays. Like, if you're unable to make profits, just hope that some sheiks will pump money into your organization. And this is not a business proposal because Dubai is not making any profits from it. But that's just a classic case of sports washing. That's what they have been doing in football for many years, and they have been successful in doing so. Whether you take like Qatar and Paris Saint-Germain, or you take Emirates and Manchester City, those are pure examples of sports watching, but on a whole different level. Because if we're talking about basketball, they don't even need that much money, like $60 million.
It's funny for me.
It's peanuts for them. So whether we accept it, I don't know. It's like easy money. And obviously the clubs and the league profits from it. At the same time, you have to agree on some conditions. Basically, I'm 100% sure if there is a real offer, it will be accepted, because I don't see how it could be declined by the new EuroLeague management. And anyways, in my opinion, right now, it's not something I'm dreaming about, but it's probably better to take Dubai's money than to let the Russians back in our market. Like, EuroLeague was sponsored by Gazprom before Russia started the terrorist attack on Ukraine. So I could live with the idea of the Final Four being hosted in Dubai. I could live with a new team that's not from Europe, but obviously it will be a team with a big budget built around American players and some European stars. It's not like local players from United Arab Emirates will be playing in the EuroLeague. So the quality of basketball wouldn't suffer, and clubs would benefit. At the same time, it would create an even bigger gap between the EuroLeague teams and the rest of the Europe right now. Because if EuroLeague clubs start profiting some crazy numbers just by participating, then there's no way any teams from EuroCup or any other competitions could catch up to them. So definitely then we're talking about more or less a closed circle, because you will have to grant an A license to that Dubai team. It will become one of the shareholders probably, and that would bring a lot of changes. However, I just love EuroLeague basketball, and quality might even improve. Because if with more money, we would see even more players coming back from the NBA, and better signings, better teams, better lineups, bigger contracts, etc., etc.
I mean, potentially that team could have crazy deals with some real NBA players. I mean, those who might not get, who might.
You mean the team from Dubai?
Yeah, I mean the team from Dubai could have. They will have a lot of money, so a guy who is getting a minimum contract in the NBA could potentially make crazy money in Dubai. And let's say, okay, maybe I'm not going to play for the NBA ring for this 1 year, but make a whole lot of money for 1 or 2 years in Dubai. We see these things with in football, players going to Asia to play for crazy money.
What would be crazy money for the NBA player in Dubai? What do you think?
Well, if a EuroLeague club could offer $6 or $8 million a year, a lot of players would sign, because it's very simple. Why would you sign a $5 million contract in the NBA just to be a role player when you can take more money and play in a really strong competition?
And only EuroLeague. I mean, there's no domestic competition.
Yeah, we're not talking like top tier players like Kevin Durant or Steph Curry landing in Dubai and playing in the EuroLeague, but we're talking about some solid players that are making decent money in the NBA, but they could have an opportunity to make even bigger bucks in EuroLeague. If Dubai joins,
if you're signing 10 million contract in the NBA, this means you're making 5. So if Dubai team offers you 8 or even let's say 10 million, and you're playing 1 game per week and you are living in Dubai, I can see some players coming over,
especially
and
veterans.
Because let's be real, they can put as much money as they want into this project.
Just, it's like insert your number in the contract.
They are not here to make profits. They won't make any profits from basketball. Their goal is to build the reputation of Emirates and Dubai. So every opportunity with big sporting events is more than welcome. And now they saw this opportunity with basketball, and probably if they host the Final Four, there wouldn't be any empty seats. They would make sure the gym would be packed. Just that we wouldn't see probably the real and passionate fans
coming over.
Oh, but anyway, if like Olympiacos is in the Final Four, Anadolu Efes, they will get anywhere to support their team.
Yeah.
You could host the Final Four in Sydney, Australia, and they will find a way. But
5K Greek fans.
In general, I don't have too much against this idea. Like, I'm not an advocate for this inflation that happened in football because of oil money. But at the same time, I'm enjoying watching Manchester City, for example. And I know that there's a lot of bad stuff behind. But if we allow this in basketball, fine. The product will be better. But we will have to live with some of the conditions, so we'll have to accept some of the things that come in that package.
Yeah, you mentioned a few things, starting with Russians. I saw that some people were questioning what Andrei Vatutin was doing in this meeting in Dubai. And from what I've heard, and some thought that, maybe Dubai might be the path for CSK to come back somehow in the EuroLeague. But from what I heard, there are no signs and no intentions that EuroLeague would try to do something, to get CSK back. Then regarding to the club, it's very mysterious, I would say, what kind of budget that club would have. Again, there are no clear indications if there would be a team, what kind of team it would be. At the same time, from what I heard, at least from these premature talks, there is an idea that it should be, let's say, a sustainable club. But I just don't believe it.
There's no such thing as a sustainable basketball club.
Sustainable club. It could be Bayern Munich, especially when they're gonna build they're gonna finish to build the new arena. Sustainable club could be, I don't know, Alba Berlin, but we're talking about mid-tier EuroLeague clubs. And Dubai, creating a team here, I don't see that happening. If Emporio Armani Milan is a sustainable club, then that's okay. It's not a sustainable club. They have a rich owner. So I believe that it would be at least something like Emporio Armani Milan, but probably, which I'm talking about 30 million budget. But I believe that it would catch these EuroLeague powerhouses like Barca and Real Madrid, and they have around 40 million budget. Regarding those players, if they would have this sustainable club idea, of course, it would be impossible to offer 5 to 8 million euros to one NBA player. But at the same time, if we're talking about the team in Dubai, if you want to have fans in your games, you have to give them something, some candies, And I could clearly see bringing at least 1 or 2 NBA guys just to fill the gym. So I don't know. I'm not against this idea at all. I think this is an intriguing market, and from what I hear, all the EuroLeague clubs are also, let's say, they have a good desire for the further cooperation of this potential market, of this potential team or the Final Four idea, because they basically have everything except from being in a good location on the map. Just check the map on Google Maps and you will see how far it is from Europe. And for the most teams, it would take something around 6 or 7 hours to fly over there, probably even by charter flight. Okay, with Turkish teams or Maccabi, maybe it's a little bit shorter, but for the rest of the EuroLeague, it's tough. At the same time, you can, We had Gran Canaria team in the EuroLeague. You have Tenerife in Champions League, for example. And all these trips, they're not as easier as this trip would be. And other than that, they have everything. They have NBA level arena with 17,000 people. They have top class hotels, top class services, reception, intriguing markets, intriguing potential, and it would just help the clubs. And as I mentioned, what kind of value it would create for other clubs, that's a good question. Because if, let's say, this number of 60 million is real, it's true, I think that this would be much higher number than Turkish Airlines gives to the EuroLeague.
Just a bigger prize pool.
And let's say theoretically you can share, you can distribute all this money between teams, and basically it is, let's say, at least 3 million to each team. And actually I listened recently to our Lithuanian podcast, and I think Jonas Miklovas had a good idea. Let's or it was Karolis, anyways. Let's try to share, let's try to share the bigger pool of that, more money from that pool to lower budget teams, and let's give less to these richest ones, just to improve the bottom, to help them to be on a higher level. And it comes to Rytis' idea that the margin, the gap between EuroLeague clubs and the rest of Europe would be even higher. But actually EuroLeague as the, let's say, commercial product, that's what they're trying to do.
But that idea is impossible. I mean, why would shareholders agree that they give money to
They might have some, let's say, different goals. From what I heard, especially football clubs, these brands like Barca, Real Madrid, even Fenerbahce, these are big brands also in Dubai, and they might benefit from in branding reasons, from marketing standpoint. They could get some features from different in a different ways, and these other clubs, lower budget clubs, they would just get some more money from the whole pool of money that Dubai could bring. So maybe it's possible to make everybody happy.
I think if you have a bigger prize pool, still it's the money you have to earn by winning basketball games, and if you start giving money to someone who's underperforming, then you're basically creating a platform to do the tanking stuff that happens
I was
in
thinking
the NBA.
about the same thing.
Because if Bayern Munich as an underdog qualifies for the playoffs, it means they get less money than they would get by finishing 14th.
Related not on the situation in the standings, but maybe even in a budget situation. There are these salary caps, luxury taxes,
budgets
and
in EuroLeague.
It all comes to the situation where, as you mentioned, okay, 3 million euros to each team. What is 3 million euros for Barca and what is 3 million euros for Alba Berlin? I mean, that's a huge difference. So, I mean, I would be okay if that would be distributed.
I don't get the model how they would distribute it fairly, but anyway, if I may add another thing, why is it different than like Emirates or Qatar money in football? Is because in football world, basically the whole community, European football community, the traditional clubs and everybody else got upset because they are generating income and spending money from their own pocket, from what they make. And all of a sudden there's a club like Manchester City that just has crazy amount of cash with inflated sponsorship deals, and they just can go out there and buy whatever they want. The same happened with Paris Saint-Germain later. And in basketball, either way, it's not a fair playground. Either way, you have clubs ran by oligarchs, by sugar daddies who are just spending their own money to win some titles. You don't have a sustainable system in basketball where clubs generate income and go that natural way, let's say. So this is why if you bring a team from Dubai, it's no different than a rich Turkish guy financing Anadolu Efes or Emporio Armani financing Milan.
If that guy is kind of financing the whole tournament and other teams.
In this case, he's not only financing his own club, he's financing the whole league. Like I said, in football, it is different because these teams, like Manchester City, will forever be hated because of their owners, because of how they got their success. And there are these historical clubs that build their own success, and like Liverpool or Manchester United, they have American owners, but American owners don't spend their own money. They just spend what the club money. They just spend what the club generates. The commercial value is that big. There's no such thing in basketball. So either way, you're living in a world where if somebody wants to pump some money and win the EuroLeague, they can do that. And Alba Berlin will have nothing to do against that. So so it's basketball world is different. We know that. And you need a lot less money to do something. So, because $60 million is not that crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, when we think about 18-team tournament.
If this is the cost to buy the name, like to make it the Emirates EuroLeague, I think it's kind of cheap.
And it's not just for the name; it's also for the hosting final.
Obviously, you get a lot more, but it's just that the name will be Emirates, not Turkish Airlines in that case.
It's crazy. Just about last thing about this number, 60 million. You listen to NBA signing these deals. You are talking about billions or even more money, and here it's like 60 million.
And we're talking like here in Europe, we're talking about it like a redemption.
Football teams are buying players for more than
100.
Yeah.
Rudy Gobert makes almost $40 million a year. Now the whole league would get 60.
I think
wherever you put Rudy Gobert and his
topic.
contract, it's already a very unfair situation. Yeah, let's go to the next question by Yorgos. Who do you think is top 3 or top 5? Oh, let's stay with top 3 best European players who never played in the NBA. Love from Greece.
Like ever?
I think so.
Yeah.
Let's say in modern era.
Because if we're talking about all time, we would have to speak about Nikos Galis. But
exactly.
I'm too young to remember. From these recent modern EuroLeague stars, I would say definitely Diamantidis, Bodiroga.
Yep.
Micic.
Micic. I actually had Ramūnas Šiškauskas. I mean, he was also close to making the NBA. I'm not saying, he belongs to the top 3 greatest players, but I think he's in a conversation.
To me, like Diamantidis and Bodiroga, it's a lock. Because both of them not only could have played in the NBA, I could see them being successful in the NBA. Because first of all, we're talking about a tall point guard that is crazy good on defense and also is very smart offensively. For example, I could see Diamantidis playing under Coach Popovich, and Bodiroga was just a game changer, whether he played for the national team or at club level, like a point forward, a very modern type of player, was probably ahead of his time a little bit. He sham got at Carmelo Anthony, as far as I remember. His skills were crazy, and if such a talent would be found in Europe right now, he would be drafted and go straight into the NBA by 19 or 20 years old. But these were different times, and Bodiroga probably sometimes is an even underrated as a basketball player, not mentioned enough. Well, right now we're mentioning him as the new head of the EuroLeague, but as a basketball player, he was just pure skill. Yeah, so Diamantidis and Bodiroga for sure, and we can discuss about the other name, Micic, Šiškauskas. Those are good options probably.
I had Galis, Bodiroga, and Micic.
Yeah, Nikos Galis has to be in there, but.
If we're taking these more recent players, then Diamantidis, for sure.
There was a question by fan from Israeli, but since his name was in Hebrew, I cannot read it. In your opinion, who's the best EuroLeague player of all time?
Again, modern GOAT. Or
that's a tough question. I started watching basketball since 1999. So for me, it's very hard to value all these.
Maybe let's stick to
let's
stick to the modern EuroLeague era. 2000s modern EuroLeague era.
But best. What do you mean best EuroLeague player of all time? So it's simply the best player, the most skillful player that ever played, even for one season, or who won the most titles.
It's up to you, because that's like a constant debate in the NBA.
I mean, it's a comparison game,
Let's say MJ is considered as GOAT in the NBA, right? Who is the closest to MJ figure in Europe?
To me, but again, in this discussion, he might lose because he didn't play that long in the EuroLeague. But from what I've witnessed, and the best basketball player with best abilities that I saw was Anthony Parker.
That was the first player that kind of
I
needed
like
to
him,
my
but
mind
he
as well.
played here just 3 seasons, right?
I know.
Yeah.
So it's hard to consider him as a GOAT.
I know, but like
he
August,
won 3 times.
August raised the question, what are we talking about? Are we talking about the best player with the best abilities or the best legacy by playing 16
I think
16
everything
seasons?
has to be taken into consideration. Because, for example, okay, we have MJ. And when you're talking about MJ, you have to include skill, clutchness, his personality, the impact he made in the worldwide championships, history.
Mr.
And
Vasilis Spanoulis.
I'm going for Vasilis Spanoulis. I mean, he's a 3-time EuroLeague champ, one of the most skilled players in Europe, the all-time top scorer. He led underdog team to 2 EuroLeague titles. Luka Doncic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, they were looking after him when they were growing up. So taking this whole package, I think that Spanoulis was closest to MJ. But of course, it also has a lot to do because we're just taking this period of time since 2000.
Well, Spanoulis is a bigger legend, but is he a better basketball player than Anthony Parker?
I mean, these comparisons, I think they're not right when we're talking about GOAT.
Yeah, but that's the question.
I think, guys, like, you're talking about best EuroLeague player of all time. So I think the Anthony Parker is the right answer if we are talking about, the best player that won something at least, but played, let's say, not a lot of seasons in the EuroLeague. And Vasilis Spanoulis is the right answer. He's best player who had the best career and played all his life in the EuroLeague. So this is like a correct answer or a good answer by both of you. I don't know.
I could change the question and it would make a little bit more sense. Like, who would be the one player you would start your EuroLeague team? That player is at his prime, and you start a new team, and you can pick one player in the modern EuroLeague era.
Luka Doncic.
But you know that you're gonna lose him when he's 18. Like his prime in EuroLeague was what, 17 years old?
I mean, I would take Spanoulis if I know he's playing for his whole career, and I have Anthony Parker for like 4 or what, 5
3
years.
I think it was 3 years.
No, he played
4 maximum.
From 2003, 2006 in Maccabi, and then from 2000, 2002. But I don't know if they were playing in the EuroLeague then.
So yeah, anyway, that's a tough question.
That's a tough question. You could put the Roga name in there. You can put.
And the thing is that we don't have the MJ in Europe.
There.
One clear player who would be, on top of the top. We have more players around, let's say, Kobe class of players where you can, put one ahead of.
It would be much easier to, let's say, build an all-time starting 5 than to pick just one greatest player, because if you build an all-time starting 5, you have space for Spanoulis, you have space for Parker, and you have space
or Saras.
For a point guard, one of those legendary point guards. So, and then you just pick from some of the greatest centers we've.
And then you have Kyle Hines, who has won 4 times, which is tied for the most titles, and he has the best winning percentage, and he has the most wins.
Fair enough.
Yep.
But I mean, choosing Kyle Hines as the best player of EuroLeague of all time would be maybe a bit too much,
But one of the most impactful
for sure
players that changed basketball. Of course, we're talking about Mike Batiste as the first real star undersized center in the EuroLeague, but Kyle Hines took it to another level in terms of defense. And up to now, he's considered the best defensive player in the league.
That's crazy.
He's 35, 36. Yeah.
Euroliga po polsku. What do you think about Saras' time in Barca, and if there is any possibility that he will get fired early with bad start of the season? Greetings from Poland, Mariusz.
I don't think he's going to get fired, but it is his contract year. So if the season doesn't go very well, if in the end they are not counting trophies, I could easily see the contract not being extended. Whether it will be from Saras' side that he doesn't want to stay, or the club just doesn't want to keep him. It's hard to tell.
Regarding this firing thing, I think that he could get fired only if, for example, during or early in the season, Barca would reach an agreement with Xavi Pascal for his return the next summer. And if things go wrong, if Saras loses the locker room, if these, Kalaitis Saras things happening in this current roster, maybe they would go, with some assistant coach just to finish the season and to prepare the team for Xavi Pascal. In any other case, I hardly see Saras getting fired in this team during the season.
I mean, I'm not going to speculate if he's going to get fired or not. I don't know. But just what do you think about Saras' time in Barca is sometimes I believe the process and the improvement are overlooked a lot in Europe. I mean, we are only talking about winning titles and winning trophies, at least some ACB, you're talking about the local league, but and if you don't win titles, it's immediately dubbed as a bad season. I don't think that's kind of fair, and you have to take into consideration what team Barca was before Saras came there. It was, let's say,
they didn't make the Final Four since 2014, and they didn't win the Spanish league since 2014.
It's a little bit unfair because they probably would have been in the Final Four in the season that the pandemic stopped, because they were already with Mirotic. They were the first or the second seed at that time in the regular season. I know they were coached by Pesic, and he probably didn't have a lot of fans, but that season they were Final Four material, surely, but they just didn't have the opportunity to prove that. And then they played the ACB League playoffs with the knockout tournament in the bubble.
And 3 months later or 2 months later.
Yeah, and they lost to Baskonia, but it was like not a real Spanish championship, I would say. And then Pesic left and the Saras era started. So I can say this, like, there are a lot of improvements. There are a lot of interesting stuff. There is a lot of interesting stuff. The way Saras plays basketball, he makes some players better, but we saw that it doesn't really help to some of the players that are already proven elite players like Nick Kalaitis. In Žalgiris, he was working with players that don't have a name in Europe. They made their name by playing in Žalgiris. Later on, they signed big contracts. In Barca, it's different, and when we were talking about this big budget club that has to win, I would always prefer an easier approach like Pablo Lasso in Real Madrid. But I know that Saras is a basketball genius. He pays so much attention to detail. He's always very demanding. The actual thing that the players stay with him and play for him, players like Mirotic, he could easily get his money somewhere else. But Mirotic wants to win, and Saras is convincing him this is the right way for us to try and win. And they were in 2 Final Fours. They played in a final. So they were a little bit unlucky not to win at least one title as of yet. But, well, it is what it is.
Yeah. And the Spanish league is the hardest local league in Europe. So
you play best of 5 against Real Madrid, even though last season probably Barca were the favorites. So they have so far 2 Copa del Rey titles and 1 Spanish league title. It's not that bad, but people are obviously focusing on the EuroLeague. To me, if we're talking about the EuroLeague, as long as you make it to the Final Four, it's already acceptable. And in the Final Four, anything can happen. You can lose by a buzzer beater. Yeah, it's a single elimination game. And talking about firing the head coach, Barcelona is not known for firing coaches during the season. If you remember, they were coached by Barzokas in 2016, 2017. It wasn't a good season for Barca by any measures. But they stayed with Barzokas until the end of the season, and then they opted out. They had a 3-year contract with Barzokas. They allowed him to finish the season, and just after that, they made a decision. So Barca is really not known for firing coaches before Christmas.
Yeah, and I think that Sito Alonso was the last coach.
I think so, yeah. But that was a really terrible start for him.
So, and if any of the head coaches are fired, it's either Pesic or Duško Ivanović coming back to Barcelona, right?
We're just probably thinking about Xavi Pascual coming back next season.
But just the next season.
This season, I don't see any point in firing Saras because also there was a continuity. It's not like it is his first year. he already created a system for this team. If a new coach steps in midway of the season, Barca will still continue to play by Saras system. These players already have it in their heads. Maybe the newcomers don't, like Satoransky or Vesely. They're new, but I don't think a new coach would improve and change a lot during the season, because we're talking about a team that is based on a very big playbook, basketball principles, rules. It's like if somebody replaces Ataman in Anadolu Efes, it's an easier process.
I remember when Panathinaikos fired Xavi Pascal, they brought Rick Pitino. So it was a huge change coming from this very tough playbook and to a coach who makes things very simple. But you cannot say that, it was a success, that change. Okay, I think that they still made the playoffs.
They made the playoffs.
But I mean, they didn't have.
But when something like
chance.
that happens, players usually still continue the season with the same luggage they had from their previous coach. Like, in my opinion, when
the way you're used, it's a habit, So
yeah, when Martin Schiller had a decent first year in Žalgiris, it was a lot due to the fact that players like Grigonis, Walkup, and some others were basically developed by Saras as EuroLeague players, and they knew how to play, and the coach didn't need to do that much. Obviously, they played different basketball, but the players already had a lot of lessons learned from Saras. So Barca, I cannot see them firing the coach, but whether they win titles this year is very hard to tell, because Real Madrid is stacked, and EuroLeague is stacked as well. You can easily lose to Efes, Milan, or any other elite team.
And you can just compare Saras to, I don't know, like for example, Ettore Messina in Milano. They have a huge budget as well, but I don't hear, at least, or I don't see him being criticized as much as Saras is for basically similar results, both in the local league, because they won one time and they lost once in the Italian league finals, and then in the EuroLeague they made one Final Four, and this year they lost to Anadolu. So they have the similar kind of budget, but they, at least, from what I hear in Italy, they appreciate the process. They appreciate how Messina changed the team, changed the atmosphere in the organization. So it's just, I don't know, maybe it's Saras who is getting a lot of attention because of how he is, of how his team plays.
Yeah, not only how his team plays, also how he's behaving, how he acts in the press conferences, how he's trying to put pressure on everybody. And you don't see too many EuroLeague coaches these days that are shouting as much as Saras is. He's not shouting at some rookies. He's shouting at EuroLeague stars. The comments from Nicolaides that he's 33 years old, he's not 20, he knows how to play basketball. Or the comments from Adam Hanga when he joined Madrid that in Madrid, I will get to use my talent a little bit more. These comments don't come from nowhere. But not every player wants to play for Saras.
That's true. That's the fact. But I mean, he's not the only one coach like that. Okay, you never heard anything like that about Željko Obradović. But I mean, there are a lot of things, at least behind the scenes, considering Ettore Messina and the way he works. Even Dimitris Itoudis, there are reasons why Milutinov or De Colo didn't join Fenerbahce when Itoudis was appointed as the head coach. I mean, every coach, especially from these, let's say, old school coaches, coming off Željko Obradović school. Exactly. I mean, they are tough coaches, and the game is changing, the players are changing, the mentality is changing, and you have to be, you have to find a good balance between being strict and between being a player's coach. But I think that Saras is, I don't see any other EuroLeague coach who is criticized as much as Saras, and I think it's unfair because even, he was, his ability was questioned, especially questioned after the last season when they didn't win a title in Spanish League and EuroLeague. But I mean, Pablo Lasso is mentioned as one of these big examples, how to handle the team, how to make everybody happy, how to use the talent. But I mean, from the rich club standpoint, when you look at their results, what did they do actually in the last 2 years? They didn't win the EuroLeague title. They won the Spanish league only once, and they lost both Copa del Rey. So I think that the amount of criticism that Saras gets is just unfair. I understand the points why they're criticizing him, but how I value his tenure in Barca, I think he was efficient for Barca reaching the titles. That's what rich clubs are going for.
I can agree. I can agree with you to some extent. Like basically judging Real Madrid without the context that they were coping without a point guard.
You cannot judge probably any team without the context.
Barca had a better roster than Madrid in these last couple of years. That's for sure. Like Real Madrid's only strength at some point was Eddie Tavares, sure. and in the Final Four when they won the El Clasico semifinal, they didn't have a playmaker. Their best creator on the court was Fabian Closet. So I'm not judging Real Madrid only by titles because they were one shot away from winning the EuroLeague last season. With the roster that they had, with all the problems that they had, without a point guard.
With the mid-season loss period
yeah,
they had.
It's just my own personal preference that if I have smart, experienced, talented players, I would prefer to play simple basketball because they know what to do on the court. They know how to play basketball. And this is why I'm a fan of Pablo Lasso. I actually love the Aito Garcia Reneses dynasty being continued by Israel Gonzalez and Alba Berlin because this is what I prefer. But I know that some people prefer strict coaches with a lot of detail, a lot of attention to detail, a big playbook, and that stuff. And when they win by some genius plays, you always praise them. What a great tactical decision he made. Because you're praising Ataman for building a good team, but not necessarily being a genius tactician. He's just building a good, modern basketball team and winning titles right now.
Dubi has a question. Who is the free agent that can make Maccabi a playoff team?
I don't know. First of all,
it's not
just about free agents. It's again, to me, it's all about Wade Baldwin, Oded Katash. Is it the right fit? Obviously, if you can sign a player like Tyler Dorsey, it makes your team better. But
do they need player like Tyler Dorsey? Well, if right now to change Darren Hillard, yes.
Instead of somebody like if Darren Hillard is out for a while, then maybe yes. I would love to have a pure stretch four on that roster in order to stop playing the lineups with Poitras and Nebo on
Chris
the court.
Singleton?
Chris Singleton is not enough of a stretch four to me. And the other thing is that he's aging. And we saw in the last few seasons that he only gets in sort of a good rhythm.
For the Final Four, basically.
In spring. And Maccabi needs wins in the regular season. So I'm not so sure about the free agent. I'm totally against an idea of bringing Dwayne Bacon, for example, to this roster because that would be crazy in my eyes. So I don't know. If I had an opportunity to replace Wade Baldwin with Tyler Dorsey, I would do that. Things would be a lot easier.
They're different players and I think better fit.
And right now they have the injury problem with Hilliard and some rumors about Austin Hollins. So maybe they will
to leave.
Maybe they will need to sign a shooting guard. So Tyler Dorsey will be a very wanted player. He played in Maccabi actually before he joined Olympiacos. And I mean, he had some good seasons there.
I don't have a particular name, but I just think that they are missing the player who could play it without the ball, who could play defense, who would bring some experience and who would help this team click. Because I'm actually surprised by some rumors of, them targeting Luka Vildoza. Then there's Matt Thomas' name. I mean, they are so different players. And even Luka Vildoza, I mean, don't they have enough playmakers? I mean, I don't feel that these players, except from Matt Thomas, he's more of a role player, let's say, shooter you can use. Actually, Matt Thomas would be a great fit for Barcelona, for example.
There are some teams that would love to have Matt Thomas on their roster.
But I mean, I don't have a particular name, but they need a different type of guy. Of course, if Hillard is out for long, that's a different conversation. From what I hear, he might be out for at least 2 months. And knowing his injury history, it might be not easy, to recover. Very unlucky player, although very skilled, very, very cool dude. So let's wish him a speedy recovery. But in this case, it's really hard to find one piece that will help this Maccabi team to become a playoff team. Huge potential.
So
over
far,
there,
only one game played, and they have that one win. So let's see what happens. We're judging them based on our projections, but maybe it turns out much better than we expect.
Because they have the potential to turn out way better when everybody expected. And there comes the question about Dorsey. Assuming Tyler Dorsey is set free from Mavericks, where do you see him landing in Europe? Is he a still good fit for Olympiacos?
I think Olympiacos is sorted because if you sign Tyler Dorsey,
that means
I don't see
Cannon has to go.
I don't see how you play Isaiah Cannon. Barcelona loves to use his 11 or 12-man rotation, but in this case, you will have to leave somebody out of the 12-man rotation, and
you cannot leave Larry the Legend out of the rotation, right?
Yeah, and Tyler Dorsey with a Greek passport, a Greek national team player would be a very important piece, and in that case, Isaiah Cannon, I don't see how he can stay in Olympiacos. So
if you replace Cannon by Dorsey, I think it's an improvement for Olympiacos because you have a player who don't need any time to adjust.
Right now, I don't see a reason to let Isaiah Cannon go. He played.
You are not making that decision.
Yes.
After one game or
of
after
course. And that was not a bad game for him, especially the third quarter.
He had a tough preseason. It's not like one
Cannon
game,
brings
but there's
a lot
enough
of good
time to implement him into the Barcelona system.
Cannon brings a lot of good to the team. It's not like we're talking about a player that's going to struggle in Olympiacos.
You either bring Dorsey and just, as an additional option as the fifth.
I think Anadolu Efes, actually. If Larkin is out, and especially if he's out longer than expected.
There's this thing about
What about
Efes.
Virtus though?
Just let me finish about Efes. I think that Dorsey would be perfect replacement for Larkin for 1 month or 2, but what happens next when Larkin is back? I'm just afraid that it's a very tough team. I mean, you can remember what happened with Elijah Brandt, with Musa, with Petrushev. Okay, now they have more players, but it's not easy to stay in the rotation, or at least to get this solid role, when all the players are coming back. So I'm just not sure what would be Dorsey's role when Larkin's coming back.
Well, but if you're signing a contract till the end of the season...
From FS standpoint, of course, it's an easy decision. But from Dorsey's
look, Tyler Dorsey, maybe when Larkin is back, wouldn't have the ball in his arms as much as he wants to, but he could win the EuroLeague and after the season sign with somebody else. So I could see that happening. But Virtus, as you said, is another interesting option, probably because we saw in the first game against Monaco that they were sort of lacking of a ball handler. And some spark,
some fresh energy, fresh legs, in the guard position.
How many guards they would have then?
Exactly, that's the other question. But I'm just looking at other teams, or either they are projected to be in the mid to bottom teams that probably Dorsey is not going to. I mean, I imagine him as being in the playoff team that has money to sign him. So from those options, I see Virtus Bologna.
And what about Barca?
That kind of needs him.
If Kuric out for long, if Higgins is in and out all the time?
Well, but if it's just a like-for-like replacement for Kuric, then Matt Thomas is probably a better fit. You need a shooter that is moving off the ball.
In that case, if Matt Thomas is coming back to Europe, but that's a tough...
I could say that Fenerbahce is even an option. Scotty Wilbekin sometimes has injuries. Carson Edwards, who knows if it's going to work out for him. And then you have Mamutoglu, Akpinara, and Guduric. So, like in the shooting guard position, you could have more quality and you can add more quality. So Tyler Dorsey landing in Fenerbahce would make some sense, in my opinion.
What wouldn't make any sense would be Monaco. But at the same time, they tend to surprise us all the last year. Virtus Bo, Serbia. Question, can each one of you name 3 players? Let's make it simpler to one player. also from past EuroLeague editions, telling where team or with coach you would have been curious to watch him playing. Obviously with a brief explanation. Thanks and congrats for the channel. P.S. Postscriptum. Mine is Doncic playing under Obradovic, even I'm not sure how it could have worked.
Like one player from the past playing for any
team.
Coach or any team.
Luka under Saras.
Why you want to ruin?
Just want to see. No,
how it
I'm
works?
not ruining it. I'm just wanting to see, how Saras and how Luka handle each other, and
maybe
what
he would
happen?
be that guy who would change Saras' approach.
I don't know. I mean,
to unlock all the potential Saras would have changing his mentality.
This is the hypothetical situations. I think this could be fun,
And I think it is impossible to ruin Luka because he's just too good.
I mean, he's still deciding on the court.
He's a natural talent, and you could see it from 15 years old. So it's impossible to ruin a player like this. I actually have a funny one because I remember there were.
I thought mine was funny too. Luka under Saras.
pretty hilarious.
Yeah, but I have a very different player. I remember there were some rumors like 17 years ago that Panathinaikos were trying to sign Tanaka Bird from Žalgiris, if you remember that. And I would have loved seeing Tanaka Bird and his approach on defense in Obradovic team. How Željko would treat him.
He would be out soon. He would be out.
But he would be out with a bang.
Oh, yeah.
As he was out with the bang.
His bang like Draymond Green?
In Kaunas. Possibly,
why not?
So that's a funny idea I had in my head while you were reading the question.
Vezenkov under Olympiacos.
Okay. I didn't spend a lot of time on this question, but I just thought what kind of combination would have been for Saras to play under Greg Popovich in San Antonio. I think it was the time when he was choosing between Indiana, Cleveland, and maybe San Antonio was still an option, and how Greg and Spurs system would have helped him, let's say, to have a better shot in the NBA.
I could see him as a good backup to Tony Parker, like Beno Udrih was a backup when they won the title in 2005. So Saras is definitely a better player than Beno Udrih. Would have been interesting. He went to Pacers and in the end became the third option in his position.
I was just, let's say, surprised or disappointed by Saras' approach when he went to the NBA. I mean, he, even in his own book, he revealed that he was just partying, enjoying his time. In summer, he got some additional kilos, and I mean, he wasn't the most physical, athletical, quickest guy in the EuroLeague. So having this huge leap, this huge jump to NBA, I thought that it was kind of a wasted opportunity not to prepare yourself for this huge challenge, and maybe a different approach in that situation could have helped him a little bit, to adapt in the league. So I don't know. It was interesting. Anyway, Gouts T-Pack. Okay. What
You're struggling with these names.
I mean, Gouts T-Pack. How can you read this name? Anyways, what do you think of my idea? I know it won't happen, but that there would be just one FIBA window before each tournament. In that case, best NBA and EuroLeague players could participate, just like we had this summer. For instance, it could start on 1st of August for 2 weeks, and then actual tournament for an hour. And that's the main question. Did you like this format? Like playing qualifiers and then going straight to the tournament?
During the season is a great idea, but
or at least just having this only one window during the season.
No, but I mean, you mean this one in August before the tournament? So basically, your friendly
he's
games.
Suggesting 2 windows in August, or let's say
Yeah, no, one window in August for 2 weeks.
Okay,
that's it. You're playing
to play all the games. Okay.
Let's say you play the qualifiers to the World Cup, and then if you qualify, you play the World Cup after 2 weeks. I mean, it's not possible, probably due to organization and all that kind of stuff. And I don't see how NBA players spend 4 weeks preparing, then 2 weeks playing, then 2 weeks waiting, and then 2 weeks playing. That's too much of a time to spend with your national team. We're losing lights.
We lost one of
Somebody's
our lights.
shooting lights out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, no windows during the season is a great idea.
Yeah, but count me in on that one.
But I hate these windows in basketball. I hate these windows in football. And
let's admit, watching Giannis and Jokic before the Eurobasket was a pure joy, pure pleasure. But at the same time,
amazing.
It's first of all, the quality already suffers because it's kind of just the part of the preparation for the tournament like Eurobasket, the final stage. And the second thing is that that kind of situation is possible only when you're playing your regional tournaments like Eurobasket. Because if you're going to play World Cup in Philippines, you don't have time, you don't have chance to play 2 games in Europe and then go straight there, because usually national teams, they're spending at least 1 week, in that specific continent, like Asia, for example, or North America, when the tournament is over there. So I think it's only possible when you have Eurobasket and you play European qualifiers for either tournaments.
There are still NBA rules that don't allow NBA players to spend more than 4 or 5 weeks to prep for the game. So I don't see.
There is no chance you can play 4 games, before the tournament. So unless it worked like this summer with 2 games before the Eurobasket, but again, the quality suffers. So
I think the only way is to have the basketball season shorter, and if you finish earlier, it's possible to have like a qualifying window in June, and the players gather, they play some of the games, and then they go on holiday.
And I can see the players.
Obviously,
I can see the players in those windows.
You're still playing until June 25th right now. So
crazy.
Imagine if you finish your season before June, you could join the national team for 2 weeks and then go on holiday. I know for NBA players it would be difficult, because if you're going to the NBA finals, then if Giannis is going, for example, to the NBA finals, he's not going to be there. But even FIBA people admit that as long as we have the EuroLeague players and some of the NBA players, that would be enough. We're not dreaming about having everybody during the qualifiers. So maybe that could be a solution. But it's a very difficult situation right now. Anyway, just like August, I'm all in for not having these windows during the season, because the basketball we're witnessing during those windows is ridiculously bad. And they're playing with the national team jerseys, but you know that most of these players will not be in the real competitions. So.
And you can't prepare in 3 days anything close to real basketball,
Exactly.
Alexandros Lianas, do you believe Sasha Vezenkov can get the MVP if Olympiacos reach the Final Four? I think also he can get the Alphonso Ford award.
I don't think he's going to get the Alphonso Ford award, but the MVP is possible.
You think so?
If they go to the Final Four, that's the condition. And of course, it depends on how he performs in the playoffs, and probably he's going to have more or less similar numbers in the regular season like he did last year. But the Alphonso Ford award, I think it's unreachable.
I mean, if you have Anadolu in the Final Four, Real Madrid, and whatever, one more team, do you think he's winning the MVP over Clyburn, Micic, or Tavares?
It depends.
I mean, I think it will be really hard for him. He has to average, 18 points, 19 points to get that, because he's benefiting a lot from what other players are creating for him. And definitely Kostas Lukas is going to have, not amazing stats, but good stats. So
wasn't Vezenkov like 3rd in the MVP voting last season, or 4th?
I don't really remember. He was close. I think he was in
the conversation.
But when you think about the MVP, I just think about the guys who made the biggest impact. And I remember when the last year's MVP, there was this MVP conversation about Mirotic.
Huge impact, Vezenkov.
Yeah, but I mean, I remember then there was this conversation between Mike James and Nikola Mirotic that if you put Mike James and his success with Monaco showed the value he brings to any team, and especially underdog team, and if it would be the same with Nikola Mirotic. And when you think about Vezenkov, I mean, I really like him as my stretch four. He's super efficient player. We already told in the last podcast that he makes the least moves to become the most efficient guy on the court because of his IQ, because of how efficient he is. But when you think about building the team, I would never consider Vezenkov as my first pick, for example, which tells something about the players who make the biggest impact. So I think that to become the MVP, he has to go for really, really high numbers, being close to, 18 points per game, 20 points per game. And Olympiacos has to be, of course, they have to make the Final Four, but they also have to be very successful in the regular season. So it's a really long shot having this, huge race with all the other great players.
Ford trophy.
I don't see
how
winning.
Mike James not winning the Alphonso Ford this season, honestly.
Last year was a successful Vezenkov, and he was averaging less than 14 points. He was 13th on the list. Olympiacos is a well-run team, having great offense, but it's tough. It's tough.
You will not win the Alphonso Ford with 15-point average.
No.
Okay,
for sure, no.
What's more real, winning the Alphonso Ford award or the MVP award for Vezenkov?
To me, it looks like the MVP.
MVP is more possible.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, Dogush, my question is, a week ago Ataman told that Efes is active on the market because of Larkin's injury. Bacon, Theo Maledon, Luka Vildoza and Tyler Dorsey will be available on the market. Most probably, in case of Dorsey, for example, or Vildoza. Will Efes make a move for one of them? But I would change this question, which player would be the best fit if we exclude Tyler Dorsey, because we already had this conversation that he could be a nice fit. What about the other names like Bacon, Maledon, and Vildoza?
Well, Bacon just doesn't make any sense. You have Clyburn. Theo Maledon doesn't improve the team at all. I have a lot of doubts whether he could actually be a successful player in the EuroLeague. So then all that's left is Luka Vildoza,
which is also not the best fit.
But I mean, okay, if we're talking about somebody who could cover the minutes, Larkin's minutes for 2 months, it's a player that loves to shoot off the screen, plays a lot of pick and rolls, and he's a good shooter. So you have Mitsic running the team anyways. So from these names, if we're excluding Dorsey, I could only see Vildoza being there, because Theo Maledon would end up like Canan Musa, probably not even playing for Ataman. What can Ataman do with a point guard that doesn't have a jump shot? How can he be a replacement for Larkin? It's impossible. And Dwayne Bacon, like I said, just does not make any sense since they have Will Clyburn. Although we remember there were some rumors that Efes were interested in him in the summer.
Yeah, but it was more about, having this move before signing Will Clyburn. Yeah,
but he signed Will Clyburn during the Final Four, probably.
Yeah. So maybe this information just came out later.
Shane Larkin is going to miss what?
Another month, I think.
Another month.
Yeah.
But we know Larkin. He needs time to get back to his rhythm. Usually, it's not like he's gonna be back from the injury and start scoring 20 every game. He will need time. Probably we'll see the real Shane Larkin only in the second part of the season.
I don't know. I could see them, even without Larkin, not going for an addition right now, even though it would help. But just signing Dorsey for the whole season. I mean,
if you have this 2-month replacement, that's perfect. And we have NBA training camps finishing. NBA season is coming, so we may have some interesting cuts. So I'm not surprised why Efes, they're not rushing it, although they were talking about this potential addition for the past few weeks. But as we see, even Vildoza doesn't sound like, the best option right now to replace Larkin. So
I mean, you have Rodrigo Bastil, who can always give you buckets in any game. So
if Bobois averages 10 like he did against Zvezda and continues shooting close to 50%, then you can live without Larkin for a while.
You have
there's Elijah Bryant coming off the bench.
Yeah, you have more options. You can play more inside game with Žižić, and you have Clyburn. It's a different Efes team with some different weapons than it was last year. So they're not as dependent on perimeter players, let's say.
Okay, Lak90 has the question. Is it Karolis Lakas? No. Who is the best fans in Europe, and why Olympiacos fans? Okay, nice question. I don't want to.
I wouldn't pick sides in this question.
I don't want to rate who are the best fans. I can say which atmosphere to me is my favorite.
So have you been in real life to these atmospheres?
Not to all of them, but
where have you been?
That's the favorite one is Maccabi.
Oh, okay.
Because
when they have a good team, yeah.
But they usually fill the arena and they're very passionate about their team. They can boo their own team if they're not playing good basketball. That's another thing. And Olympiacos or Panathinaikos fans, I love the Greek support. I even love how they support the national team in the Eurobasket. But the thing is that it seems like OAKA or the Peace and Friendship Stadium is almost, I'm not going to say empty, but it's a very big space. And if it's not a huge game, you would not get a very good atmosphere. When Olympiacos is playing some of the bottom teams, I know that the Ultras are doing their job, but the whole crowd is not really into it. When it was playoff time against Monaco, that was crazy shit. But in general, I love Maccabi. I love what they're doing, but it's kind of easy to list these clubs that have the best loud support, like the Serbian teams, Greek teams, Turkish teams, and Maccabi, and Žalgiris if the season is going well. But Žalgiris support is kind of different.
It's different here in Lithuania.
Yeah,
you don't have everyone as into the game, as in those Greek, Serbia, Turkey. So
it's so hard to find, let's say, to describe best fans, because all these countries, all these teams, they're so unique with their fan bases, and that's the main difference compared to the NBA. Because, for example, I mean, I've been to some great crowds, including Panathinaikos, Olympiacos, and they have some own things. For example, I don't remember more scared faces on the bench when I saw Žalgiris playing Red Star in Alexander Nikolic Hall, for example, when 8,000 people are shouting and jumping and you cannot hear the EuroLeague anthem. At the same time, I remember that I was in Olympiacos Žalgiris playoff series, and it was the full Peace and Friendship Stadium, and as the moment Saras stepped in on the court, they were just shouting, they were killing him, cursing him, and they just made very hostile environment in their own way. I was in derby between Partizan and Red Star, and I don't remember more, let's say, aggressive feeling. There was this feeling that this crowd is very aggressive, and it was not very cozy, experience, but at the same time it was unique. So most of these teams, Fenerbahce, for example, when they were successful, I think that they have some similarities with Maccabi, because they have smaller gym, fans are pretty close to the court, and they can be also very loud. It's fun to watch Anadolu Efes when this gym is packed and when they're winning games. I mean, all those teams, even for example, Asvel, I mean, they have this best announcer in all Europe,
They
dancing, shouting, doing DJ stuff, announcing during the game. I mean, this is why EuroLeague is so unique, with a lot of different cultures and with a lot of different fan bases, which makes them lovely to experience.
Virtus actually adds a lot to the fan scene. Virtus in Italy has probably better support than Milano. But
although
that's
even
easy.
Milan's experience can be astonishing when they have full gym, when the team is winning, and they can also be loud.
That happens one time per year.
Yeah.
I was lucky.
yeah,
I was
come
lucky
on.
to visit Mediolanum twice or 3 times last season, and the gym was always
and in
packed.
Bologna,
You can't compare Virtus with
in Bologna, they
No,
really
no,
love
no,
basketball.
no.
They really love basketball.
Yeah.
Virtus has great fans, but actually, I'm not in awe with all this aggressive environment that's being created. I don't like watching basketball games feeling like at some point the crowd is going to erupt and something bad is going to happen. I just love the feeling when it's all about supporting the team, all about making the noise, all about catching the runs when the team is going for like 10-0 run. The crowd is up there, very electric. That's what I love.
Then Maccabi it is.
And this sort of war environment, I don't like it, and I don't get it. I know it happens sometimes in Europe and you cannot avoid it, but
especially
I don't see myself being in an environment like this, like you said, hostile environment.
Yeah, me too. You can make it hostile in a peaceful way. Let's say it's not necessary to throw things. It's not necessary to have thousands of police. Let's say
It's
security.
not even
guys in
necessary
the court.
to insult people.
Oh yeah, exactly.
You can
But
just
this happens
support
in
your team.
every in every country.
Even the Maccabi fans, wasn't there this situation when some fans went to the locker room or something, but the team was losing last season? There was some.
I think so.
thing.
Well, I'm all up for booing the team if they're not playing good basketball.
Yeah,
I get it.
But that's it.
doesn't have
but
to translate
going
into
after
some
your-
physical altercation.
Going after your team's head coach or the players is out of the line.
It's like if you are in your job doing your job, somebody is booing you at your desk, and then
Yeah.
okay, that already would be a lot, to expect.
But, I mean,
let's say your boss is booing you, but then not only booing you and then coming to hit you or I don't know, trying to do something.
Yeah, if I get some feedback from viewers that I'm not doing particularly well on a certain game, my coverage is poor or something like that, I will always accept the criticism. But if somebody is waiting for me outside the studio and wants to punch me in the face because I was very bad at covering Efes Monaco,
or insulting you,
or insulting me, then I would say it's not fair.
Sometimes it's just this, fan support makes me, think a lot. How we got to this point of supporting and insulting your own team, the refs, the other team players, and stuff like that. Because it doesn't happen in other jobs. It just happens in sports, and you're just lashing out your emotions on the team you are supporting players. So that's kind of crazy. But my one of not favorite moments, but the moment that is stuck on my mind is when Red Star fans is singing their anthem or their song. I don't know what they're singing, but during the EuroLeague anthem, and you cannot hear anything. Like these 10 players, 3 refs are standing in the middle, and all you can hear is them singing and not the EuroLeague anthem that is playing in the arena. So I'm not saying they're the best fans. We have 6 or 7 teams that are close, but that moment is always in my mind, and it just gives me goosebumps.
Uriel Como, who's the most overrated and underrated player in the EuroLeague? Have your picks.
It's kind of hard to go with the overrated because
You're burning some bridges.
I don't have any bridges, so I don't have nothing to burn. But
Nemanja Nedovic.
I wanted to say Nemanja Nedovic. I actually said Nemanja Nedovic in a Lithuanian podcast last week in a similar answering to a similar question.
Oh.
Because probably he thinks he's a star and he's trying to play as a star and he's trying to take those Steph Curry-like shots, and it's not really working out. We never saw him leading his team anywhere. We never saw his teams being very successful with him on the roster. Being injured is not something against him. It just happens. It's unfortunate. But when he is playing, I'd say he's scoring. He's getting the numbers, but I couldn't say he's very consistent.
Empty numbers.
Yeah, and basically he's out of the radar for any of those teams that are seeking to win the EuroLeague title.
That tells you, something.
Yeah, so probably I would say he's a bit overrated, and it's much easier to pick underrated players because there are so many.
Basically, in every team, you can find one underrated guy.
At this point, do we still consider Luke Sigma underrated or not? Just because he's staying with Alba Berlin and he's being overlooked, but
everyone
he's overlooked. Probably, maybe he made his own choice to stay in Berlin to be a focal player in a nice environment.
He's like the smartest player in the EuroLeague, so that says a lot. What else do you have?
The same Maudolo. Is he still underrated? Just because he plays in...
He might be underrated
Alba
because of the last season, right? Because before he was still not very inconsistent. He didn't, let's say, show why he should be trusted by these top teams, Final Four contenders, for example. But yeah, I agree with compared to the last season. And he's the same... he has the same thing with Luke Sigma. For example, I don't see Luke Sigma playing for Partizan or Red Star and, having this Alba League Finals experience. He's not that type of guy. He doesn't need that. So,
actually, I would say another name, Alec Peters, a bit underrated. I would always sign him for my team in EuroLeague because you would love to have a stretch four type of a player who can also rebound, and he doesn't complain if he needs to play lesser minutes. If he's a backup, like he is right now in Olympiacos, that's fine with him. He's going to play his role, but he's so good at spot-up shooting, and he's also smart. He's also, competitive. He's fighting. He fits the Olympiacos team. This is why he's being signed by very good teams. He played for CSK, for Itudis. He played in Efes. He played in Baskonia. Last 2 seasons, I believe. Now he's in Olympiacos. And he's just a piece of the puzzle you want to have. But you're never going to rate him as a star player, because he will not have very high numbers usually, but he adds a lot of value by playing his position and playing to his strengths.
I think that Billy Barron is also one of the more underrated guys in the EuroLeague. Great character, one of the best shooters in the EuroLeague, as the season ends, and it showed that you can also rely on him handling the ball. Team guy, he can win you games. He's consistent, so I really like Billy Barron. He's one of these late bloomer guys. It's crazy that he thought about, retiring after this crazy Lietuvos Rytas experience with Coach Šeškus, just selling some meat in the back of his car.
From the big teams, I could say that Gabidek is sometimes underrated.
I wanted to name him.
Yeah, that's true.
Because, when we talk about Real Madrid, it's always Tavares now, Yebuzele, or... We talk about Janan Musa, Hezonia now, the guards, Yui before, Chacho Rodriguez. But Gabidek, I think he's one of the, if not the most important players. And he just does so much. Maybe his play style is not the one you see on the highlights and other stuff. Yeah. So that's why he's, let's say, a bit overlooked, because he's one of the best players, in the EuroLeague right now.
Okay, we have few last questions because we're out of time. There's one
last question.
There's one guy who he's going to travel during the season around Europe with a bus, basically with the van. And he actually has a challenge and a question. Hi, always a pleasure to listen URBONUS podcast, but I never seen your basketball skill. I challenge you to make a basket on my van when I'll come to Lithuania. I'm following EuroLeague season in van. So we will, delegate Augustas Šuliauskas for this challenge, for sure. And he asks, which rule of FIBA basketball will you change?
I'd say... and I've been saying this for a long time, I want to add the in-game timeouts to European basketball.
To avoid games being decided by free throws.
Yeah, by missing a free throw on purpose. When there's a second left on the clock, let's say. Also, it would create a lot more opportunities for game-winning shots.
For late game heroics.
Yeah, and also, in some situations, it looks kind of unfair when a player slips with the ball in his hands, and he's just being pressured by others. He could get himself out of trouble by calling a timeout, which also would mean his intellect, the way he reacts to the situation, he reads the situation, he wants a timeout because he sees he's going to lose the ball. I think it's not smart by having the rules the way they are right now. Just keep going.
I had the same answer as you, Ritis, the timeout. But one more thing I would like to change in the FIBA basketball is the stickers. It's not a rule, but it just creates so much confusion. And I'm seeing in this season, in the last season, and I'm always, clipping that one. Maybe one day I will make a compilation of all the slips that on defense.
Players get hurt.
Players get hurt. It's crazy. And you see a slip almost every game. So this is not a rule, but I would like to change that you cannot have stickers in the circles around the free throw line.
Yeah, two quick things to add. I would do something with this unsportsmanlike foul thing at the end of the game. And also, I hate when, especially also at the end of the game, teams are awarded the free throws when somebody fighting for the offensive rebound gets fouled. And then, this defensive team is rewarded with free throws because you're awarded for points for your defensive action, which I don't think is right. So that would be my 5 cents. And okay, going to the end of the end, some personal questions. Panman15, do you actually support any team?
Portland Trailblazers and Manchester United.
Okay.
I support any team that's being coached by Pep Guardiola. I support Leo Messi. I support Ajax Amsterdam. I support
this conversation is going to football
Barcelona.
Again. What about basketball?
And basketball.
I think it was basketball-related question.
Oh, okay.
And in basketball, I used to support San Antonio Spurs because of Manu Ginobili and Big Free. But in the NBA, I don't get attached to the franchise because things are changing all the time. I usually follow the personalities a little bit more. I wouldn't say I have a favorite team right now. And in the EuroLeague, my favorite team right now is Monaco. But it's not like I support them. Like I'm just sitting next to the TV and praying that they're gonna win the game. It's just that
this Doncic jersey.
I admire them. Let's put it that way.
Obviously, we like to see Žalgiris win on the European stage, but here in Lithuania, me personally, I don't have any preference. I had preferences when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But now it's just
I
watching
think that
watching
most
basketball.
of us, especially working in this business, shifted from that situation. I mean, it's for me, it's a pity I didn't have a strong hometown team. Maccabi became, let's say, a player even in the Lithuanian league just kind of recently when I left for Vilnius. I would love to have this, let's say, hometown team feeling here in Vilnius. I would love to bring my son to the game and support this team just because, we're living in the city. It won't be with Ritas probably. I'm not sure if it's gonna be with Wolves. We'll see. But I would love to have the project I would trust and I would support with my son just to have this experience. And I was actually at Sarunas Football Club Ultra, and I was dreaming something about it. Yeah.
You watched football in your life?
Man, I was
being an ultra is not watching.
Yeah. I was watching football until when I was playing FIFA, basically, because I knew all the rosters. I followed football. I played Football Manager. It was a nice experience. But when I left for Vilnius, I stopped following it.
Yeah, I get it. Like to me, as I said, it's more about supporting an idea or a personality, not about the club. Like you heard my football preferences is just that I support a certain philosophy of the way the game is supposed to be played.
Or the beauty of the game, let's say.
Well, and for some it's a beauty, for others it's not.
How you understand the beauty of the game.
It's just my preferences.
Albert, I will not use CBDC. Do you have spare time for hobbies? What do you do for fun?
Right now, I play basketball for my hobby. No, we're going to the same road, sports.
Yeah, I try to think of this question and to think what I could say outside of sports, because watching other games while I'm not working, I cannot say it's like a hobby. It also helps in my profession.
But it's
So
the
it's
best
like-
thing about, having a job which is kind of a hobby at the same time.
It's like you're doing self-improvement by watching as many games as possible. And the true hobbies, I would say, fishing. I rarely have time for it, only in the summer. But since my childhood days, my father taught me fishing, and I love going fishing with him. Also, just casually spending time with my girlfriend and my dog, because I love dogs. I couldn't imagine myself without dogs. And then a little bit of gaming and watching documentaries and TV shows. It's very simple, like for many people. I wouldn't call myself like a big traveler. Usually people, when they present themselves, one of the first hobbies they list is traveling.
But is it a hobby really? I mean, now
Well,
it's like
for some
a lot of
people it
people are
is.
traveling.
For
but
some-
If you're doing it every month,
Depends
Yeah.
on what you're doing during your travels and what you're seeking.
Probably.
So I don't know. I'm just like a basic guy. I love watching those like intellectual TV shows, quiz shows we have in Lithuania, and just spending time on my couch. Because on weekends I'm working. That's the tricky part. Like when my friends or my girlfriend are free, I am always working on Saturdays and Sundays.
How you're still in a relationship?
You have to manage your personal life a little bit.
I mean,
Come on,
I feel
Natas.
bad for girlfriends and wives of, let's say, not even sports people, but of journalists and commentators, for example, because
shout out
usually
to Sigrida.
you work late. In Rita's case, you work on weekends and you're watching games during the week as well. I mean, it's a tough.
It's not as tough as it sounds. It's manageable.
handle.
You just need to make some compromises sometimes. But I'm not complaining about that. But if I have to list one hobby that's a real hobby, I would say fishing.
Okay. At this point of my life, I don't have any hobbies. We just had this conversation with my wife. I mean, there's no
Kids, what is your
room
hobby?
for
Kids.
any freaking hobby right now.
But okay, what hobby did you have and you would like to bring back, if possible?
I really like going to gym, for example, just to feel healthy and just, shut all the noise around. I considered it as a hobby, but I wasn't a big hobby guy. I mean, for me, it was tough to find something which excited me or made me feel better than just hanging out with my family. And, it might be a lot of different things. Okay, we can include traveling, but just going outside, having these long walks on some nice places in Lithuania. But I don't have one, fetish like for guys who like fishing, for example. You can call it some kind of fetish.
I'm not a hardcore fisherman. I just love the process with my father. We usually just let the fish go by the time we're finished. It's not like we're fishing for food or in the beginning it was maybe like that, because the first years in Lithuania after we got the independence were kind of tough. So any chance you get to benefit from your activities, you would use that. But these days, when we get an opportunity, we just go on a boat in the lake. We spend 2 or 3 hours, just talk a little bit, drink some beer, and in the end we let the fish go. I'm not like a savage. I'm not fishing them to take pictures of my trophies or anything like that.
Okay, one really last question, Karolis. Albert, he follows up with, what is your dream job?
NBA GM.
NBA GM is probably the easiest.
But is it as good as it sounds? Because I actually had this conversation with one NBA front office, let's say, NBA front office guy.
It's obviously not easy. And
it's freaking hard.
Yeah, of
it
course.
Takes out of you, you don't have any personal life. You're always under very high pressure. And when you think about it, thinking about the dream job, it would be awesome to be part of big basketball processes, but not to be the main guy, to have this opportunity to have some time on weekends, on evenings, just to have somebody ahead of you making these decisions.
So the owner of the team. then
president of the team.
But then you have to be a filthy rich.
yeah,
it's not like a job. It's not a job.
But it's a nice dream. Yeah.
But the GM thing, I mean, I know it would be exhausting, hard, difficult, and everything else. But if you end up being successful, you can feel like you've created something and you've actually achieved something. So you can definitely dream about it. And it's not like you need to be an NBA GM for 20 or 30 years to live a sustainable life. If you have a successful career for 8 or 10 years, you earn money, you get respect, and then you can do whatever you want. You can be an expert on television or whatever. So just to try yourself in a position like this,
that will already be
sounds
huge.
intriguing and sounds exciting. Maybe I would fail. Probably I would fail because I'm too lazy. But you just love the idea.
Says a guy who works every weekend.
Yeah, but I sleep a lot, and my job doesn't require that much effort, and you don't need to think about others. You don't impact others. You're just basically going there to do what you can. You have some skills, and in this case, I would be responsible for building a basketball team and to make it a winning basketball team. So in the end, if you achieve it, I think it would be a great feeling. But if you fail, then obviously you might not get a second shot at this. So, and I would fail because I'm lazy, like I said. I hate being on the phone, for example. And as a GM, I would have to make a lot of phone calls and a lot of conversations. I hate it. So, but the idea that you could build a basketball team, you've been playing like fantasy
football
managers
and managers from when you were 3 years old. So,
yeah, exactly.
I told you, being a front office guy, I'm not naming a specific particular position, but to be a part of big processes and to make impact and to have a great team around.
And to leak information to the new Urboda?
Nah. I was thinking about this, but I don't want to say anything because it might hurt my current situation. So.
But honestly, since my mother told me that I should be a basketball commentator when I was like 6 or 7 years old, I could say I pretty much working my dream job right now.
Yeah. Just being in basketball actually is kind of a dream.
To me, being able to wake up
and talk basketball,
being able to wake up at 12 or 11 instead of waking up by the alarm clock at 8 and working 9 to 5 is already a dream fulfilled.
It's a nice privilege, yeah.
So I always wanted to set my life the way that I could wake up when I want, not when somebody else wants me to. So I probably achieved 80% of that.
To me, just talking basketball, writing basketball, and watching basketball is just, it doesn't sound like a job for me.
It's like a hobby.
Passion.
Yeah.
Probably.
Okay, guys.
On this positive note,
keep dreaming, keep achieving your goals, just enjoy your life at its best. And thank you all for all these questions. And just a quick reminder, actually, Jonas also gave me one reminder that it's also a great feeling to browse basketnews.com with ad-free, which BN Plus platform will help you. One more time, this was the last, let's say, open Q&A session, because the other sessions we will have every 2 weeks will be only for BN Plus members, and you can get more information on about our new platform on basketnews.com/plus. So thank you all for your questions. Thanks for following us, and please subscribe basketnews.com channel on YouTube and press like button to help us grow, and join this community as well to help us grow as well. See you next time.